It is a battle almost as old as time, or at least about 11 years. Everybody swears by the 5-liter V8. My personal daily driver has the 5-liter V8, but this EcoBoost that they're making today puts everything kind of in question. It makes me second guess a little bit. For a half-ton truck, the 5-liter puts off pretty impressive numbers: 400 horsepower, 410 pound-feet of torque, but these EcoBoosts as of late, 400 horsepower, so the same 500 pound-feet of torque. That is like early 2000s diesel-like torque. But that is right, everybody. Welcome back to the channel. Today, we are going to be stacking up this 3.5-liter EcoBoost to my personal 5.0. As much as this isn't a video about the truck itself, I wouldn't be doing you justice if I didn't give you a good look around it. I personally love this color. I love the wheels. Don't love the mirrors. We'll get into that here in just a little bit. The headlights look pretty solid. I'm not the biggest fan of the grille, but such is life. Overall, this is a engine comparison, but this truck is equipped almost identically as my personal 5-liter. In terms of towing with the right gear ratios, the 5-liter is rated up to about 13,000 pounds, and the 3.5 is rated to almost 14,000. I think that's more the hybrid, but you get the point that EcoBoost is rated for just a tick more, if I remember right, which really kind of goes against everything everybody always talks about. Everybody who swears by the EcoBoost will say it's not just numbers. I know it's small displacement, it's whatever, but it almost feels like a diesel, blah, 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 blah. If you guys have watched the channel for a long time, you know that one of my previous trucks was actually a 3.5 EcoBoost. However, it was an old one, a 13. That's a much different truck than what we have sitting in front of us here today. If you guys watch the channel, you also know that I have owned just about every truck you could think of. Not quite, but very close. I've owned all the big brands of diesels. I've owned a couple half-tons. I have run the gambit. I also work at a dealership, so I get to drive pretty much everything all the time. We are gonna go drive it and give you my general driving impression, see if I do notice a big difference in just the way it drives and feels. Everybody swears there is. Overall, as a quick review of my truck, it has been really, really solid. It has like 63,000 miles on it now. It is a 2023. This is a 2022, both with the 10-speed, both with the same gears. I tried to make it as apples to apples as I possibly could. But without further ado, as I always say, you guys don't come here to listen to me yap. You come here to watch me drive it and tell you what I think, so let's get right to it. Okay, driving the EcoBoost. Here we go. Getting on the road to give you guys a look, just kind of at the general, how everything goes. You can still hear the turbos a little bit. You could in my old one too, that's kind of cool. Do I notice anything jumping out at me right away? Not really. Obviously, I'm not towing anything, not going up any grades or anything like that. Obviously, this truck's gonna make its torque much lower than the 5-liter is going to. I don't remember the exact differences right off the top of my head, but in general, this will make its torque lower than the 5-liter does. That's one of the big benefits of towing. Let's address the elephant in the room, the reliability. Part of why I went with the 5-liter this time, I don't know, I also had the EcoBoost, and there was one area that it really, really struggled, that I really wasn't a fan of, particularly where I happen to live, right? Towing a camp trailer with my old EcoBoost, it was well within its ratings, but that thing would get hot, especially during the summertime. I live in Arizona. I don't think it's a secret, it's really hot here. So when we were towing, there's two scenarios that I tow the camp trailer in. When it's really hot in the summertime to go camping, or when I'm going hunting. When I'm going camping in the summer, it's like 100 and some degrees. We're going, on the freeway at freeway speeds. When I'm going hunting, we're going from 1,500 feet where I live up to typically north 7,000. So it's just straight uphill the whole time. In both of those scenarios, that truck really struggled. In terms of heat, power, had all the power, but it couldn't keep it cool. I've heard that's been addressed with these ones. I don't know, I haven't towed anything with this one, so if that's the case, you guys let me know. As I've just been driving around here, I would say I feel a little bit more of that low-end power, just kind of accelerating a little bit smoother. I don't know if that's 100% the case. It's not quite a fair apples to apples comparison because obviously mine's the 5 liter, but I also have a little bit of a different exhaust setup on mine. So you hear it a lot more than you hear this truck, which I think might be kind of some of it. But 90 torque or whatever it is nothing to sneeze at, especially given it has it at the lower RPMs. So I would say so far there's a little bit of a difference. Yeah, okay. One thing I want to see, I know there's a glare, I'm sorry, is if I just reset the cruise control in normal mode, see how fast it gets back up to speed. Goes up to about 3,500 RPMs. That's really, really similar to my 5 liter. Very similar. They both shoot back up to speed pretty quick. Would say this got there a little bit faster, probably. A little bit more aggressive. One thing I'm also curious about, my truck, the difference between normal and sport mode is insane. It's a huge difference to be in normal mode versus sport mode, just the way the truck feels. It'll engine brake in sport mode the whole 9 yards. So I'm curious if this truck does the same. We're gonna find out here in just a sec. Okay, getting on the freeway in sport mode. Yep, just like my truck, it makes a pretty noticeable difference. There's a car in front of me, so I'm not going too fast, but I can just tell throttle response, much more aggressive. You could hear the turbos seem to spool a little bit faster. If this bozo would get out of the way. This is one area, I don't know, that's not really any different than my truck getting up to a similar speed. Let's route in at 80 miles an hour because I also want to compare the fuel economy, and I do this speed a lot in my truck. Let's go back to normal mode, jump over here where we have an open lane for a little bit and just let the truck do its thing. Okay, we've been cruising at 80 for a while on cruise. RPMs are sitting just a sniff above 1,500. Interestingly enough, that is the exact same RPM, damn near to the individual one that my 5 liter sits at. Very interesting. Fuel economy almost exactly the same also. Mine, I drive 40 miles each way to go to work and back, mostly on the freeway. Most of the time I go 80, and it almost every tank ends up averaging somewhere from like 18 to 19. The truck thinks I'm gonna hit somebody, they're a mile away. So fuel economy seems to be, at least under this circumstance, identical. Towing the same load, again, I don't have this truck, so I can't speak to it. However, you are gonna use boost a lot, right? Boost sucks down fuel economy, whereas in the 5 liter, you're gonna use more RPMs, right? My EcoBoost towing the same trailer to the same trailers with my 5.0 got about 2 miles a gallon worse than my 5 liter. Okay, so if you're gonna be in boost, you're gonna get worse fuel economy. On the highway, you're probably gonna be pretty similar. You might squeak out a little bit better sometimes in the EcoBoost. I don't know, let's just call it about even. They're pretty close. One place my 5 liter is awful is engine braking. It downshifts and makes a bunch of noise like it's engine braking, but it does almost nothing. This truck, I put it in tow haul just to get off the freeway there, and hitting the brakes, it did seem to actually help a little bit. And I remember my old EcoBoost actually being halfway decent the way it engine braked. I was a little bit surprised when I got in the 5 liter that it literally is like useless. Okay, we did in normal mode, resetting the cruise. I want to do the same thing here, getting on the freeway, but of course this joker's in front of me. Let's see, once we get up to speed here, in sport mode, reset the cruise. We were at 50 going to 80. You can definitely feel that the boost is pulling for sure. Your RPMs are not that much different though. I'm honestly kind of surprised. I thought it would just throw more boost like my old one did and not use as many RPMs, but that could be exactly why my last one had the heating problem, right? Because they just shucked boost at it and didn't use many RPMs. Maybe that's an improvement from Ford. You guys let me know down below. So just kind of driving around, the more I've driven it, the more you do start to notice that little bit of a different feel in the tug, the overall tug, the torque, especially down low. There is a difference for sure. You will notice the difference between the two engines. This one has it a lot more just on the snap, ready to go. That's how, EcoBoost versus V8, that's how they're all gonna kind of be. The V8s have to get their RPMs up to make their power, where this can just kind of throw boost and use RPM. So This is always going to have an RPM advantage. I don't know that it's necessarily an RPM advantage that I'm noticing or just that extra torque. And I do think it is the extra torque, which leads us into our next point, which is talking about towing. And speaking of towing, one area that my truck has a huge advantage is in the mirror department. Thanks to our good friends over at Boost Auto, they hooked us up with these mirrors. These mirrors are incredible. They do not shake. They give you fantastic visibility. Overall, a very, very good product. Much better than the joke of a mirror Ford puts on there as they come. Make sure to check out the link below to hook yourself up with some great mirrors and all kinds of accessories. Wireless charging, lit up running boards, all kinds of stuff, man. They truly are a fantastic company that build great quality products. Okay, we're back. It is, in fact, quite late at night. Ended up having a customer right when I was done talking about that. Anywho, let's talk about towing. Obviously, the 3.5 is going to have more low-end torque. We already discussed that. That's what makes the 3.5, I don't know if legendary is the right word, but very well known for towing for the half-ton class of truck, right? In general, low-end torque, better towing. The big question mark is always the reliability. Twin turbos versus V8, what do you want? I don't know. I like the V8, I do. That's why I bought one. It does a good job. The overall reality, I think, if you take 100,000 of each of these trucks in a row that Ford produces, I think they're both, the vast majority of both of them are going to be fine. 98, 99 of them are going to be great. Could you say one or two more EcoBoosts may have some early onset problems? Possibly, right? I don't think that's unreasonable to say or think. But what's the overall reality? I don't know. But let me know what you guys think. I think for me personally, I still like the 5-liter V8. I just know it. It's proven. Not that the EcoBoost isn't at this point. There's just more question marks. Let me know what you guys think down below. Let me know if you want a dedicated video to my truck, towing with it, fuel economy, whatever you want to see. Drop it down below. Let me know. Overall, there's one place that the EcoBoost is never going to get a hold of the 5-liter, and you already know where it is.